The Mexican War of Independence, 1810–1821, was a significant conflict that led to the end of Spanish rule in Mexico and the establishment of an independent Mexican nation. It began as a rebellion against colonial authorities, but evolved into a social and political revolution driven by various factions and grievances. Several factors contributed to the outbreak of the war. Social inequality was one of the main issues. Colonial Mexico was marked by strict hierarchy, with Spanish-born peninsulares at the top, followed by criollos, Mexicans of Spanish descent, while indigenous peoples, mestizos, and enslaved Africans faced severe discrimination. Criollos, in particular, were frustrated by their exclusion from high positions of power, which were controlled by peninsulares. Economic discontent also fueled the conflict. The colonial system exploited Mexico's resources and people through heavy taxes, forced labor, and monopolies imposed by Spain, leading to widespread dissatisfaction across different social classes. The spread of Enlightenment ideas, such as liberty, equality, and democracy, further challenged the legitimacy of Spanish rule. The success of the American, Haitian, and French revolutions inspired similar calls for independence in Mexico. Additionally, the situation in Spain itself contributed to the unrest. In 1808, Napoleon Bonaparte invaded Spain and installed his brother, Joseph Bonaparte, on the Spanish throne. This created a crisis of legitimacy, as many in the colonies refused to recognize him as the rightful monarch. The war officially began on September 16, 1810, when Miguel Hidalgo y Costilla, a Criollo priest, issued the Grito de Dolores, Cry of Dolores, calling for the Mexican people to rise up against Spanish rule. Hidalgo appealed to the mestizos and indigenous populations, promising land reforms and an end to racial inequality. His movement quickly grew, but his poorly organized army was defeated at the Battle of Calderon Bridge in 1811. Hidalgo was captured and executed, but his cause lived on. After Hidalgo's death, José María Morelos, another priest, became the leader of the revolution. Morelos was a skilled military strategist who sought to organize a revolutionary government. He called for independence, the abolition of slavery, and land redistribution. In 1813, Morelos convened the Congress of Chilpancingo, which drafted the first Mexican constitution. Despite his efforts, Morelos was captured and executed in 1815. With the deaths of its early leaders, the war shifted to guerrilla warfare. Leaders like Vicente Guerrero and Guadalupe Victoria carried on the fight, maintaining resistance against the Spanish forces. The war remained a grueling struggle, with insurgents continuing to pressure Spanish colonial authorities through smaller, more localized battles. By the early 1820s, changing political circumstances in both Spain and Mexico opened the door for a resolution. In 1820, a liberal revolution in Spain restored a constitutional monarchy, weakening the colonial government's authority in New Spain. At the same time, Mexican royalist officer Agustín de Iturbide switched sides and allied with Vicente Guerrero. Together, they issued the Plan of Iguala in 1821, which called for Mexican independence under a constitutional monarchy, social equality, and the preservation of Catholicism as the state religion. On September 27, 1821, Iturbide's Army of the Three Guarantees entered Mexico City, marking the end of Spanish rule and the birth of independent Mexico. After the war, Mexico faced significant challenges. Iturbide briefly became emperor in 1822, but his reign was short-lived, and the country transitioned to a republic in 1823. The war left the country economically devastated, and political divisions persisted between liberals, who favored a federal republic, and conservatives, who sought a centralized government or monarchy. Despite these struggles, the Mexican War of Independence is remembered as a defining moment in the nation's history. It is commemorated annually on September 16th, Mexico's Independence Day, in honor of Hidalgo's call to arms. The conflict also set the stage for future political and social struggles, particularly over issues like land reform and racial equality.